Sometimes, a small act of kindness can ripple through time in ways you'd never imagine. For Emma, a single gesture toward a homeless man outside a church seemed like a fleeting moment. But a decade later, the knock at her door would reveal just how profound that moment truly was. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Stories Unfolded. We bring you heartwarming, mysterious, and life-changing stories that will inspire you. Let's dive in. Emma had always believed in helping others. Raised in a small town where neighbors looked out for one another, she grew up volunteering at soup kitchens, donating clothes to shelters, and offering a listening ear to anyone in need. But as life grew busier, those moments of selflessness became fewer and farther between. At 35, Emma was juggling a demanding job, raising her 2 young kids, and managing a household. Yet, she never forgot the importance of kindness, a belief that would lead to an unforgettable encounter one crisp winter morning. It was a cold December morning when Emma passed by St. Mary's Church on her way to the grocery store. The sound of a nearby bell caught her attention, and she turned to see a homeless man sitting on the church steps, hunched over a battered pair of shoes. The man was in his late 40s, with graying hair and a weathered face. His coat was threadbare, his hands red from the biting cold. He struggled with a roll of duct tape, trying to patch the sole of one shoe, which had completely detached. Emma hesitated, feeling the familiar tug of compassion. She approached him slowly. "Hi," she said gently. "Do you need some help?" The man looked up, his blue eyes filled with a mix of weariness and gratitude. "I'm just trying to fix these," he said, holding up the shoe. "Can't walk far without them." Emma crouched beside him. "Let me see what I can do." Emma ran back to her car and grabbed a small emergency kit she kept in the trunk. She returned with strong adhesive and began carefully applying it to the shoe while the man watched in silence. "This should hold for now," she said, pressing the sole firmly into place. "But you really need a new pair." The man chuckled softly. "New shoes aren't in the budget right now." Emma nodded, her heart breaking a little. She reached into her wallet and pulled out a $20 bill. "Here, this should help." The man hesitated, his pride warring with his need. Finally, he accepted the money with trembling hands. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "What's your name?" "Emma," she replied with a smile. "What's yours?" "Paul," he said. As Emma stood to leave, Paul looked at her with an intensity that startled her. "I won't forget this, Emma," he said. "You've done more for me than you realize." Emma smiled, brushing off his words. "Take care of yourself, Paul." She walked away, thinking it was just another small moment in her life, one of countless acts of kindness she'd performed over the years. But for Paul, it was the beginning of something far greater. The years passed, and Emma rarely thought about that day outside the church. Her life became a whirlwind of parent-teacher conferences, work deadlines, and family dinners. She never saw Paul again and assumed he had moved on to another city or found shelter elsewhere. But one December evening, nearly a decade later, everything changed. Emma was in the middle of wrapping Christmas presents when there was a knock at her door. Max, her Labrador, barked excitedly as she hurried to answer. A uniformed policeman stood on her porch, holding a photograph in his hand. "Good evening, ma'am," he said. "Are you Emma Wilson?" Emma's stomach tightened. "Yes. Is everything okay?" The officer held up the photograph, a picture of Paul, the homeless man she had helped all those years ago. "Do you recognize this man?" he asked. Emma nodded slowly, her mind racing. Yes, his name is Paul. I helped him fix his shoes outside St. Mary's Church years ago. Why? What's going on? The officer smiled. I think you'd better sit down for this. Emma invited the officer inside, her heart pounding as he began to explain. Paul passed away recently, he said gently. But before he did, he left a note and specific instructions to find you. Emma's breath caught. Find me? Why? The officer handed her an envelope. Paul wanted you to have this. With trembling hands, Emma opened the envelope and pulled out a handwritten letter. Dear Emma, you may not remember me, but I will never forget you. 10 years ago, you stopped to help a homeless man fix his shoes. You gave me more than money or kindness that day. You gave me hope. Because of you, I decided to turn my life around. I checked into a shelter, got clean, and found a job. It wasn't easy, but every time I wanted to give up, I thought about the stranger who cared enough to help me when no one else did. Eventually, I saved enough to open a small repair shop where I helped others, just like you helped me. I'm writing this because I don't have much time left. But before I go, I want you to know that your kindness changed my life, and through me, the lives of so many others. Thank you, Emma. You'll always be my angel. Forever grateful, Paul. By the time she finished reading, tears streamed down Emma's face. She clutched the letter to her chest, overwhelmed by a mix of grief and gratitude. The officer cleared his throat. Paul also left you something else. He handed her a small box. Inside was a pair of polished leather shoes, perfectly stitched and gleaming. He made these himself, the officer explained. Said it was his way of repaying the kindness you showed him. In the days that followed, Emma couldn't stop thinking about Paul's story. She learned that his repair shop had become a community hub, offering free services to those in need. Paul had paid her kindness forward in ways she never could have imagined. Inspired by his legacy, Emma decided to volunteer regularly at the shelter where Paul had turned his life around. She shared his story with others, hoping to show them the power of even the smallest acts of kindness. This story reminds us that no act of kindness is ever too small. Emma's decision to stop and help Paul not only changed his life, but created a ripple effect that touched countless others. If this story moved you, please like and share it to remind others of the power of compassion and the unexpected ways it can change lives. Don't forget to subscribe to Stories Unfolded for more inspiring tales of love, resilience, and the human spirit. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.